The UK is home to some of the most amazing landscapes and wildlife I've ever seen. But it's also one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world, with more than half of its native species in decline. Wildflower meadows have been hit especially hard, and 97% of them have been lost since the Second World War. This has had dramatic effects on pollinators and other insects. But wildflower meadows are still clinging on in some places. Today we're going to speak with a person who started a local nature reserve in a closed churchyard in Littlemore, Oxford. Bee-friendly flora was planted 1 year ago, and the site is now home to an impressive array of insect life. It is also a valuable green space for the local community.
Julian Armitstead, otherwise known as the Vicar's husband. I live here in Littlemore, in the vicarage next to the churchyard. I thought it would be nice to draw a community of people in Littlemore together as a sort of sustainability group, and maybe under the umbrella of that we could draw together our larger concerns about what's going on in the world and how we could act locally about global issues. And I thought that it would be a great way to link our neighbourhood up, to have a bee colony. 1 year on, we've had our bee-friendly flora, which became something of a community project to plant both here and in the village hall, and we've got our beehives. Very often urban or semi-urban churches provide people with the only green space there is. And I think this year many people have become much more aware of nature and much more kind of fascinated, but also kind of sensitive to nature and what it does for our mental health.
We're living in a time where 7 out of 10 British people feel out of touch with nature, and almost a third of parents feel they would not be able to teach their children about native wildlife. Local green spaces like the Littlemore Nature Reserve can help change this state of affairs.
One of the beekeepers has a young child, and she's come here on several occasions with other children, and it's been wonderful to see them playing with their parents here and learning about literally about the birds and the bees, but also about the flora. I have noticed this spring in particular like no other spring before. It's just been incredible. And the nearest thing I can compare it to is like the firework display that you get in London on New Year's Eve, and you notice that all the fireworks go up, but the first fireworks go up and they're followed by the second and the third and the fourth. And for the first time I've noticed spring in the same way, that nature puts forward these blossoms, and the first one comes out, and and then the second one and the third one, and now I don't know, we're in the fourth one, aren't we? We're in June, so we're in the rose season. But it all started with the primroses and the daffodils, and before that the snowdrops, and then there were the forget-me-nots, and so it's been an incredible experience for me to follow that through, and I owe that in large measure to what I've just seen in this churchyard. Actually, we had a lot of what I thought were dead nettles around, and there was a patch of this in the churchyard, a huge patch of it, which was attracting amazing amounts of interest from bees. And these bees were different in shapes and sizes. They were different in their sort of flight patterns and their styles of movement. But I took a closer look, and in fact we had a local lady who's part of our sustainability group come in one morning and say, "Oh yes, you've got comfrey there. I'd like some of that because I've been trying to grow it for ages." And apparently this is what it is. It's comfrey. So I became very, very aware of the comfrey in our churchyard, and kind of getting up close and personal to it. I could spend quite a bit of time with my head at sort of comfrey level, just peering into the plants and just seeing that world inside it, which is just full of pollinators of all sorts. There are challenges in managing, if that's the right word, a sort of churchyard as a nature reserve. And the number one challenge is, of course, that people want this to be accessible. also as a churchyard, so that they can come and see their loved ones. But I've had a couple of conversations with people who've come and they want access to their loved ones' graves. And I've been reassured really that once you explain to people what this is and that it's not, letting nature do its thing, it is not the same as neglecting the churchyard, and that's the balancing act that you have to get right. So we do things like we keep a pathway through the centre, and we mow certain spurs off, lateral spurs in the churchyard, which enables people to reach graves. But by and large, particularly for the first 7 months of the year, we really don't want to mow the grass and the wildflowers and so-called weeds, because obviously that's hugely important for the pollinators. And I think they're beginning to see that this is not just a churchyard, this is a place that is cherished and a place where nature is sort of set aside to grow. And I think as people get used to the idea that we're taking nature very seriously, and as we kind of keep people informed and take people alongside, that's a good common journey for everybody.
This project shows us the promise of investing in our local wild spaces and the importance of giving space to nature, to let it just simply be and grow and change as it will. All of it is important to something else in the ecosystem. Local changes can have huge impacts, and there are lots of things you can do to help, like leaving space for flowers in your gardens, planting native flowers, or mowing your lawns less frequently. Try to look at the wild, imperfect, untamed areas around you and see them for what they really represent. They may not be as pristine as a perfectly green lawn, but they have so much beauty and significance and life.